Hello, how you doing, folks? All right, welcome to episode 6 of my little pod show. That's a TV show that's not on TV, and a podcast that's not really a podcast, because let's face it, I've got the production values of a 4-year-old idiot child, and it's just me talking to you on a show, really. So welcome to my pod show, Reversing the Hold, with me, Mad Dog Max, and Matt Powell. This is episode 6. Can you believe it? I'll be honest, when I first set out to do this podcast, I did say this would be season 1 and it'd be a limited 6-episode run. So this might be the last episode, but I'll be honest, it probably won't be, because I have enjoyed doing this for you guys, and more importantly, much more importantly, you guys have enjoyed listening to them because of all the feedback, and you've sent questions in every show and every week. So obviously your interest hasn't died off, because I've got as many questions to answer now on episode 6 that I did in episode 1. So, you know, I might carry it on. I'll finish this episode, I'll get it out there, and you guys can tell me if you want any more. And if the interest there, I'll actually make more, because I've enjoyed making them. I didn't think I would. It's something that I started because of lockdown, really, and now the lockdown's gone and I'm still bloody doing them, so, you know, I must enjoy them somehow. If I look like a bit of a tramp because I'm dressed the same as last week's show, I'm not a tramp, but I am dressed the same as last week's show. Only because it's the same day. I'm recording episode 5 and 6 back to back. So you might have watched episode 5 last week, and now you're watching episode 6 and you think, well, he's in the same hat and the same glasses and the same bloody and the same shirt. Well, I'm not a tramp. It's just the same day for me. It's only been a 15-minute break since the end of episode 5 and now the episode 6. I just had so many questions come through, and not only that, like I explained to you last week for you, or an hour ago for me, I'm on a very, very long trip home. You know, I've been down south to Taunton on a little bit of business, on some non-wrestling business, but still business nonetheless, something I've had to sort out, and that's it really. So I'm on a very, very long trip back home, and I've got time to kill, so I figured I might as well do episode 6 while I'm here and all. I answered a lot of wrestling questions last week / an hour ago. I can't lie to you, I'm just going to be honest. Yeah, I answered a lot of wrestling questions, so I'm going to answer some non-wrestling questions now. I might get back round to doing some wrestling questions, but we'll start with some non-wrestling questions. So if you don't like sci-fi and if you don't like comics, fast forward the next 40 minutes, or, you know, go and watch last week's episode instead. I don't know, it might bore you to death, but if I've been asked the questions, I'm going to answer them. So that's that really. If you're watching this in a couple of weeks, we'll be getting closer and closer to the big shows at the end of the month, so I'll just plug them before we get stuck into the questions. Don't forget, we've got a big show at Bilston. Russell's happened for me a couple of days ago, but for you it'll be a couple of weeks ago now. But let's recap what happened then. We had Chris Royals throw a fireball at Danny Gold's face. We've had some damage to his eyesight. We've had trips to the hospital. I've had to take him up to the hospital a few times, because he can't ride his bike, bless him, because he can't see properly. So he's not, even though he's got decentish vision in the one eye, he wouldn't legally be allowed. So I've took him up to the eye infirmary a few times, and he's had to go up. He's had to go to a different hospital in Stafford for some treatment on his chest and on his stomach, for some skin treatment and things like that. So that's not been looking good. But there's revenge to be had, as there is so much in wrestling. So Saturday the 30th of October, big Halloween special, but your main event is an unsanctioned match, so it's not been cleared by PWL. Both wrestlers have had to sign paperwork. Chris has had to sign some paperwork to suspend his suspension, believe it or not, to allow him back for the night. And Danny's had to sign some paperwork so that PWL and myself and the new incoming commissioner and the Board of Control and anybody involved officially in PWL, Danny's had to sign some paperwork to absolve us all from any kind of, how do you want to word it, any kind of so we're not bound by any kind of further medical damage that might be caused by him by getting in the ring too soon. You know, I don't want to be sued. I want to help him, and I want his career to get back on track, and I want him to get his revenge on Chris Royals, but it can't be at the expense of shutting the promotion down because we owe him millions of pounds or something, you know. So both wrestlers have had to sign a waiver. Chris was a legal waiver, Danny's was a medical waiver, still a legal waiver, but a waiver, you know, to get rid of any medical problems that we might have afterwards. And it's a bit of a crazy one, really, an unsanctioned match. Not only that, it's a blindfold match. The reason it's that, I think, the thinking with Danny to suggest it, and the thinking of the new commissioner to sanction it, or not to sanction it, as it may be, but at least to give it his thumbs up. I think the reasoning behind it is to equal the footing up. You know, both men will be blindfolded, you know, and they'll go at it on an equal plane. To give you an idea of the context behind this, years ago on American wrestling, originally Junkyard Dog had his vision very badly impaired because of the Freebirds, and then he went into a blindfold match against one of the Freebirds to equal up the score. You know, Bill Watts booked that match to equal the score out a little bit. So the handicap of Junkyard Dog, who was his big baby face of that promotion, his big superhero and drawing card of that promotion, so we would have an equal footing against Michael Hayes in the blindfold match. So that happened. Then a couple of years after that, Rick Martel and Jake the Snake had a blindfold match, and if you remember, one of those was blinded with the perfume that Rick Martel used to use. So that was used for that again, to equal the score, because one of them had their eyesight temporarily damaged, but they wanted to get at each other. There was also a very, very good blindfold match promoted in England between two very good wrestlers, one of them being Steve Gray, a great technical wrestler, and Mal Sanders, who was again a great technical wrestler, but what a villain was he. You know, he could get the crowd going. Personally, my favourite ever blindfold match was between Steve Gray and Mal Sanders. It wasn't the one that everyone talks about. It wasn't Junkyard Dog and the Freebirds, or it wasn't the famous one that all the people remember. It wasn't Rick Martel and Jack the Snake. My favourite ever blindfold match was Mal Sanders, managed by Sid Cooper, against Steve Gray. I think it's just one of the best blindfold matches I've ever seen in my life. But yeah, coming back to PWL, because I'm plugging and that's what I've got to do. It's my job, innit, you know. Saturday the 30th of October, 6 p.m. at Bilston Sports and Social Club in Bilston. You've got a blindfold match main event, Danny Gold against Chris Royals. So that's massive, you know. Get yourself along to that. If you haven't booked a ticket already, what are you doing to yourself? You know, why? Get on with it. And then we've got a show the day after that, Sunday the 31st of October, a nice afternoon show at 2 p.m. at the Kingshurst Labour Club between Solihull and Birmingham. That's going to be a nice, cool Halloween show, and we've got some prizes on offer that show. Best Halloween costume for a kid and the best adult with a Halloween costume. You'll be getting some prizes, and there'll be some special bonus prizes that day, and there'll be some free sweets and trick or treats for the kids. Anyone who comes in fancy dress costume, you'll be getting a nice sweet and all that kind of stuff. So that'll be a fun show. So yeah, Saturday the 30th of October, 6 p.m. in Bilston. Saturday the 31st of October, 2 p.m. at the Kingshurst Club. So there's my plugs, and there you go. Let's get stuck into some questions, shall we? Let me just overtake this car because I'm on the motorway and I don't want to be too unsafe. Just overtake him and get into a nice easy lane. He was swerving and driving like a bit of a maniac, so I've wanted to get round him. So I've got round him now, and I'll drop down a little bit and calm down. He can sit over there and swerve on his own now, away from me, because I've got away from him. So let me just remember these questions. This is a really good question, this one. It's from Leslie Summers, who I am guessing, Leslie, that you related, or that you go out with Daz Summers, because I spoke to Daz about the X-Men before, and your questions about the X-Men, so that's really cool. I apologise if you're not. It might just be a happy coincidence that two people called Summers that know me both like the X-Men, but I'm guessing that you're connected. I'll check later, but because I'm driving I can't check nothing. But Leslie Summers has asked, what's my favourite X-Men story arc and how the X-Men has changed over the years and whether that's good or bad. Okay, so as you know, I'm a big X-Men fan. I've got the X-Men tattooed on me there, so you know I'm mad into my comics. I've got the Watchman symbol there on me as well, and a few other references to comic books all over me. And anybody that knows a little bit about me banging on these podcasts, you all know that I love the X-Men. So that's a great question for me. I could talk about the X-Men forever. But that's a really interesting question, story arc. I think my absolute favourite one was the Age of Apocalypse. Apocalypse was always such a scary big bad, you know, and in so many different X-Men stories, you know, he pops his head up and the X-Men deal with him, and it's scary as fuck because he's basically the X-Men's big bad, isn't he? You know, he's the big bad villain who can do anything and change anything and do what he wants, but the X-Men always find out a way of dealing with him, you know, even though it's scary and you worry as a fan reading it, you know, you're like, oh my god. And for those of you that don't read the comics, the Apocalypse film doesn't quite do the villain justice, so don't worry about it. You know, if you think, well, if you're watching this thinking he's not that scary, Matt, I've seen the film, I ain't on about the film. Don't worry about it. I'm on about the comic book villain, Apocalypse. He's such a great villain. And what they do in many regards with the Age of Apocalypse saga is it's kind of a what if, because what they do, they find out a way of explaining to you what would happen if Apocalypse won, but they don't tell you it's a what if at the start. It's very clever how they do it, really, and maybe I'm doing spoilers here, but how can this be a spoiler, because this is decades old, this story. So if you haven't read it yet, shame on you. You can pause me if you haven't read it yet, go away and read it, and then come back a week later and watch the rest of this. So if this is a spoiler, I'm sorry, but I don't think it is, because it's not like it come out last week. The Age of Apocalypse I read when I was a teenager, and I don't think it was on its first run then. I think I read it on a subsequent run. But it's brilliant. I'll give you a very brief overarch of what it's all about, but I won't be doing it justice because I haven't read it for a number of years, but I absolutely adore it. Charles Xavier, you know, leader of the X-Men, founder of the X-Men, smartest mutant alive, best, you know, psychic, best, you know, powered, mentally psychic mutant on the planet at the time, you know, brilliant. He obviously is the answer to Apocalypse. He comes up with the answer. He knows to tell the X-Men what to do. They do, and they deal with it. Well, in this version, Charles Xavier has a son called Legion. Great mutant power in its own right, in that it explores mental health as well. Legion has schizophrenia, or what you might call multiple personality disorders. I think in the end they work out that he's got like 1,000 different personalities, which is insane. But what's furthermore interesting about Legion, I don't know if it's 1,000 or 100. 100 might make more sense if he's called Legion. I don't know. Let's say 1,000, but multiple personalities, many of them anyway. And what's special about him being a mutant and being in this situation is that each personality has a different mutant power, which is fascinating to me. That is just brilliant, you know. And I think the crux of it is that there is a prelude to this that sets up how he dies, but basically Legion goes back in time. Bishop's got something to do with it because he's a displaced time warrior anyway. Something goes on, he goes back in time, he tries to prove, that's it, he tries to go back in time to kill Magneto, to say, look Dad, look what I've done, I've killed your biggest nemesis and you're not going to have loads of trouble off him anymore, and he's not going to ruin your life and kill loads of people. Tries to do something to prove something to his pops, I think, basically. But what happens, because if that happened then it wouldn't make a very good story, would it? What happens is he goes back in time and accidentally kills his dad instead. And what's super interesting about that is, instead of it setting Xavier down, Magneto, who is Xavier's best friend but goes on to become his biggest enemy, instead of us setting him down a path of being evil and being the biggest, you know, villain in Xavier's path and all that kind of stuff. It expires. I can't speak properly, can I? It's because I'm trying to cover this light up here so you can see me. Look, the sun's behind me. You can tell I'm coming home. Yeah, instead of Magneto becoming this big evil bastard and founding the Brotherhood of Mutants and killing all these people and starting this, that and the other, watching his best friend Xavier die at such a young age inspires him to start the X-Men in Xavier's memory and become what he knew Xavier wanted to become, you know, to defend human and mutant race together and to try and promote harmony and end all this racial prejudice. And Magneto effectively ends up becoming the Xavier character in this timeline, in this happening events of Age of Apocalypse. And he starts the X-Men as a tribute to his mate Charles Xavier. But what this enables to happen as time progresses, as it would have anyway, when Apocalypse rears his ugly head, there's no Xavier there to lead the X-Men and stop him. And as much as Magneto tries his best, he's not the big psychic that Xavier is. He can't read minds, he can't manipulate what's around him. And Apocalypse wins. And then you fast forward to what would have been current X-Men time, and the world is just a wasteland, and very much like World War II, what Magneto came through and tried to avoid. There's these vast death camps, but instead of Jewish people being put into them, humankind are being put into them. So Apocalypse can have this glorious future for mutant kind. And obviously the X-Men are like the resistance fighters, you know, and they're trying to stick up for the good side and all this kind of stuff. And I'll be honest, I can't do the story arc justice. It's amazing. It's the biggest what if ever, because Cyclops is a bad guy. He's one of Apocalypse's adopted sons. Sabretooth, who's a never-ending bad guy in the regular timeline, he's a good guy and is in the X-Men, and all the X-Men's a completely different team to what you would think it would be, you know, and Wolverine's a completely different character to what you think he would be, and all these characters are different, and Magneto's this valiant leader with long white hair, and it just throws the universe on its head. And I loved it as a kid. I thought it was such a great story arc, and even how they return it and snap back to our time and you find out it's a what if, even that's cool. But yeah, to answer your question, Leslie, the Age of Apocalypse, my favourite X-Men story arc. There are a few others. I really liked Schism, which was a really cool story arc. Because obviously Wolverine and Cyclops never got on because there was that story, that was that love triangle between Jean Grey and them two. But Schism kind of shows them becoming friends and getting respect for each other. It's after Xavier's gone, and Cyclops is kind of like the de facto leader of the X-Men, and Wolverine's kind of like the number two. So they kind of have to get on. And Schism shows them getting respect, and Shock Horror becoming friends. But what's Schism? Boom, obviously, shows them falling out properly forever. And that leads on to the Avengers versus X-Men story arc, which I don't like as much, if I'm honest with you. But Schism's a great arc. That's worth a read. Age of Apocalypse is worth a read. And another one that I really like, just very quickly to cap this off, I'll give you three. Days of Future Past. I think that's a great story arc. Not the film. The film's okay. It's not my favourite, but the story arc, Days of Future Past, that was the first ever story arc that I read. I'd read a few X-Men titles, so I was familiar with the characters, you know, Cyclops and the original X-Men, and the few that had come into it later on, like Storm and Nightcrawler. I knew who was who. I'd been reading for a bit, and then bam, this Days of Future Past thing came in, and it was set in the X-Men's future, and most of the X-Men had died, and the Sentinels had done it all. And it's slightly different to the film, but Kitty Pryde ends up helping Wolverine go back in time to kind of put it all right, and that's a great arc, and I really enjoy it. So the three off the top of my head, even though there's probably three that are better, the three that stick in my mind because I've read them at very different times in my life, when I needed a good story to read and I needed something cool to read, you know. It was them that meant something to me at different times in my life. So Age of Apocalypse, Schism, and Days of Future Past, they all mean a lot to me. The second part of your question, you've asked how the X-Men has changed for the better, and I'll be honest, I'm probably going to sound like a Grinch now. I don't read as much of the X-Men now as what I would like to. The X-Men hasn't offended me really. A lot of modern comic book titles have changed so much and they've gone so liberal and so PC that I've kind of backed away from them as much. X-Men hasn't really done that for me. I still like the X-Men, and I still, you know, the X-Men was always preached against racism, really. You know, and bullying and racism and homophobia and anything that like just bullied one section of society. That's what the X-Men was covertly promoting, really. Well, not promoting, going against. You know, it was like a secret. It was like a secret fuck you to racists and bigots and homophobes and sexists, because the mutant population was a euphemism for ethnic minorities and trans people and homosexual people, and just how I identified with it. That nerdy kid who was a little bit different, you know, and mutants got bullied in the comics, and you know, you've got those sections of society that are treated different, whether it be because they're racially prejudiced against, or sexually prejudiced against, or homophobia, or just being a bit of a nerdy kid who liked to read comics, so people tried to snigger at you. And I identified with the X-Men because the X-Men were sticking up for those kind of people, and I really liked it. And that message of the X-Men never really changed, but the message of the Avengers, in my opinion, and the message of, how do I put it, the message of just, you know, Iron Man and everything, it seemed to change. The X-Men didn't change, in my opinion, but so many of them did change, and it got a bit too liberal and PC. And I always thought that the X-Men was the most liberal and the most PC, that if you wanted to preach about those things, put some back episodes of the X-Men out, you know. North Star, for instance, the first ever gay marriage in a comic, it was on the front cover, and I brought that comic and I loved it, you know. But the message of a lot of Disney titles, as Marvel got brought out by Disney, it changed, and I backed away from Marvel a little bit. I'll still always love the X-Men, and I'll still every now and again pick an X-Men title up, but I thought how Thor and how the Hulk changed and how different titles changed, rather than bitch and complain about them, I suppose, like I am now, but only to answer your question, rather than jump online and just be an angry 30-something complaining, which I don't like. You know, I always say, like, to the wrestlers, they'll say, oh, I think Raw's shit, and then they'll go on Twitter and say how shit Raw is. My opinion is, if you don't like something, turn it over. Why waste 3 hours of your life watching Raw if you don't like it? Well, the same thing is, I stopped spending £15-20 on these trade release comic books just not to like them, and I don't want to be one of those people who just jumps on Twitter and Facebook to complain about, you know, the fact that Thor's a girl and it doesn't make any sense to me, because there's lots of strong female characters anyway. You know, is there a stronger female hero than Storm? She kicks ass, man. As a kid, I thought she was amazing. I respected her and I loved her, and she was one of my favourites. I don't need Thor to turn into a woman for me to identify with women and to see strength in women. I already saw strength in women because X-Men was the most diverse cultural cast I ever saw in my life anyway. You know, Jean Grey and Storm and Thor and Blink and Jubilee, they were already strong female characters that kicked ass. I didn't need Thor to turn into an Asian character to represent the Asian cast, because I already had the X-Men. I could already read about Sunspot or different characters of different backgrounds on the X-Men. You know, I didn't like that they were changing so much to try and appeal to other sections of society, which I understand. But my thing was, just make new heroes instead. You know, if you want to make a brand new Asian character that's cool, and he kicks Thor or Hulk's ass in the first episode to establish how cool he is, but then you do some character development, I'd be buying that title right now. But when they change so many titles of my youth, rather than complain and get angry, I held on to what I loved about the X-Men and what they were trying to do with the rest of it, and I backed away a little bit, and I started watching independent titles. And I started reading independent titles, which I can go into in a minute, which I will. But the truth is, I can't tell you how the X-Men has changed over the last sort of 10 years, because unfortunately I've kind of moved away from Marvel a little bit, and I don't read Marvel titles anymore, and I don't watch the Marvel films anymore. My childhood is intact because I can still read all those comics that I've got from the past. And the funny thing is, the new titles that I read are more socially forward and more socially liberal than any Marvel title that would ever come out, but they're not fucking with my childhood, you know, so I'll read them. And I'll read like, there's a really cool title called Saga that I read, and that's just amazing. If you want to read something new, Leslie, and you're still into your comics, or anyone else still listening, I highly recommend Saga. I absolutely adore that. I'm like 9 or 10 books into that, and they're on a break now. Boo! Hurry up and make Saga, guys. And I read something called Black Science. That's finished now, but that's 10 or 11 books in a row that I've read. I mean, you can borrow them off me if you want. I like Black Science. That's an independent title that I read a lot, or have read. It's finished now. There's one called the Manhattan Project, which I read, and that's amazing. There's one called The Evil and Divine. That's just phenomenal. There's a new title. I read new titles now, and I have more fun reading them. So I can't. Although the X-Men never upset me and never hurt my easily hurt white male cis feelings, the other titles did. So I kind of backed away from Marvel a little bit. So I can't tell you what they're about now. But I have told you what I'm reading now, so hopefully that answers your question. But in regards to story arcs, going back to 10 minutes ago, Days of Future Past, Schism, and The Age of Apocalypse. If you haven't already read them, you'll love them, but I bet you have. But if you haven't, try a few of those new titles out and tell me what you think. And if you want to hear some more titles, drop me a message or ask me another question, and I'll go through my current collection. And I've got loads of new ones that I read, and I much prefer reading new creative things now than what's Thor gonna do for the 60th year in a row. But that's just where I'm at. I'll probably go what I'm like. I change my tastes a lot. I wear my heart on my sleeve, and in 10 years, when all the current Thor and Avengers titles aren't popular anymore, I will probably just reject a call. I will probably start reading them in 10 years when everybody else is bored of them, and I might, who knows, in 10 years I'll answer this question properly when I catch up. But yeah, that's about it really. So that's that question. I hope that's all right. I hope I've answered it properly without really exposing the fact that I'm a grumpy get. Okay, next question. Let's pull into the slow lane. Put cruise control on. Oh, burping, sorry. Next question. Right. Oh, Adam Liggins has asked me. Oh, great rock band, mate. I met you at Rush Hall and I watched your band at the Lockstock. I plugged them the other week. The other day. I'll give them a share. Adam Liggins says, who's your favourite X-Men character? I'll answer this question quickly because we've just been talking about the X-Men for half hour, and anybody who doesn't like comics has already turned the channel over anyway and they're watching something else. So gather round, the 4 fans that I've got left, and we'll talk about the X-Men a little bit more. Let me get a drink, hang on. My throat's getting dry now, doing two podcasts back to back, so bear with me while I peel this drink open, because it's them silly ones where they put a sticker on it first. There we go. So sticker's open, my can's open, and it hasn't fizzed everywhere or got on me everywhere, so that's good, isn't it? Okay, so Adam Liggins, my favourite X-Men character. We must have spoke about the X-Men at the Rush Hall Labour Club, or you've seen me post about my tattoo or something for you to answer that question. But that's really cool. I'm glad you've asked that question. I'm really glad you've asked it. Honestly, I like a lot of X-Men, and there's a lot of them that really appeal to me. Like I said in the last question, the reason the X-Men appeal to me so much is because they were kind of like society's outcasts, and they were treated like shit, and they still chose to be good people anyway, and they still stick, you know, they could still try to like to protect and stick up for the people that persecuted them. And you know, that's very Martin Luther King like, or very Nelson Mandela like, you know, because Nelson Mandela used to preach harmony, not revenge, you know. One sec, I'm going to just answer a phone call. And I'm back. Sorry about that, guys. I had to take a phone call. It was about the business that I've just been down south for, so I knew it was important. So normally I wouldn't do that. I'd just cancelled it. Like my brother rang earlier and I just cancelled him off. I'll call him back later, bless him. But anyway, the reason that I was attached to the X-Men so much was because they were downtrodden and persecuted, and I just decided to be the good guys anyway, and I really admired that, you know. Like I said, like Martin Luther King used to speak about things similar to that, and Nelson Mandela certainly spoke about that, because he spoke about the, you know, equality and this, that and the other. But it would have been very easy for Mandela, the way he was treated, to say, well, I fucking hate white people because they've treated me and my people like shit my whole life and for the last 400 years. But he would go and shake their hands and listen to them and speak to them, and, you know, and it reminded me a little bit of that. And I just liked how a downtrodden person, instead of getting bitter, thought they might try and be a good guy as well. And I don't know, I just like that element of it. I love the X-Men, and I always will, despite the fact that I admit I don't read Marvel anymore in the last question. But I will again one day. I'll stop sulking with them one day. But the last X-Men film was that bad. Yeah. I know that wasn't Disney, it was Fox, but let's see what Disney do with the X-Men. We might kiss and make up then. I might like the mouse again if he saves the X-Men franchise. Get that Jon Favreau on it from Mandalorian. He'll look after him, won't he? Yeah, so my favourite X-Men character, I've got a few. But as a kid, it was always Wolverine, because he was a badass, wasn't he? I just loved that he, you know, Wolverine and Xavier to try and think of like something really cool to stop anything, and he'd just like get his claws and smash the door open while they were still talking about it. He was all action and no nonsense, and as a kid I really liked that, so it was always Wolverine. But then two things kind of turned me off that character. I still love the character and I always will, but two things kind of turned me off the character and he stopped being my favourite in a way. The first one was Marvel's fault, and it was a bit like how the WWE booked John Cena or I don't know, Roman Reigns or somebody like that, in that he got rammed down your throat, because Wolverine obviously became the most popular X-Men character. That weren't just to me, that was to the world. They relied on him heavily, and he was in the middle of every storyline, and at one point he was captain of one of the X-Men teams, the gold team or the blue team or whatever. He was captain of the X-Force, because that was a covert operation version of the X-Men. He was a member of the Avengers. He had about 3 Wolverine titles, and he was in everything unrealistically, to the point the man would have needed a time machine to be in every storyline he was in. Much like how in the 90s Marvel relied on the X-Men, because the X-Men was selling in its thousands and nothing else was. So you had X-Men Gold, X-Men Blue, X-Factor, X-Force, X this, X that, Excalibur. You had everything had X in it, and everything had mutants in it, because it was selling. So they over relied on it, oversaturated the market, and then it dropped off, because of course it did. They did the same with Wolverine, and there was about 3 different Wolverine titles. Wolverine was the captain of everything, he was the king of everything, he couldn't do any wrong. He was also in the Avengers, he was in Japan, he was in America, he was saving the world on a minute by minute basis, and I just got fed up of him because Marvel rammed him down your throat. And then, you know, that was a bit much. And then the other one was, as I got a bit older and a bit more mature, and I started taking leadership roles within the wrestling, you know, like coaching and promoting and things like that, I realised that, you know, that maverick character like Wolverine, like say you've got Xavier and you've got Cyclops talking things through and coming up with a sensible way to do it. And you know, as a kid, when that Wolverine character goes, "Don't worry, I'll sort it," and he just smashes the door down, that kind of character always caused more trouble than he's worth in the end anyway, didn't he? You know, so I started to see, yeah, as a kid, Wolverine's a great character. You know, he kicked the door down and he gets these berserker rages and he's mad and he just stab everyone with his claws. You kind of need an Xavier, didn't you? Do you know what I mean? To say, calm down and stop doing that. You're going to kill 70 people opening that door or whatever, you know. So as much as I love Wolverine as a kid, as an adult, or as I got older anyway, I'm still not an adult, am I really? I'm still a big kid. Because here I am on a podcast talking to you about the X-Men for 40 odd minutes. I'm just about to talk about Star Trek and I'm going to go home and read a comic. So I'm still a kid. But, you know, as I got a bit older and understood world a little bit more, I realised that, like, you know, them kind of characters ain't always the best. They're fun to watch, but they're not always the best. So as I got older, like Cyclops and Xavier and characters like that become my favourite. And believe it or not, he's a villain, but I really liked Magneto as well as I got a bit older and they explored his character in more depth. And you realise, like, it's the persecution of his people in the Holocaust and in World War II that makes him do the things that he does. And as misguided as he is, at least there's depth to the character, and you like that depth, you know. So I'd have to say favourite X-Men, Wolverine as a kid, Cyclops as I got a bit older, and then as I'm older still, probably Charles Xavier. And I'm really hoping in the modern day X-Men they find a way of resurrecting Xavier. That'll probably be what makes me watch it again, or read it again rather, and buy the titles in again. If they somehow resurrect Charles Xavier, I'll probably buy that storyline and just get back into the X-Men again. Saying that, now I've said that, someone's probably going to message me and go, you dumb idiot, they brought Xavier back 5 years ago or something like that. But as far as I know, because I'm not into the modern Marvel stuff, I think that Xavier's still dead. I think he probably isn't now I've said it, is he? You know what comic books are like. But yeah, it's probably Xavier now. But it was Wolverine, and somewhere in the middle it's Cyclops. So I really like the Cyclops character. There's a lot of depth to it, and they did a lot more with it than you'd think over the years, you know. And that's it really. There's my favourite. My favourite one's probably Cyclops or Xavier. I'd have to flip a coin to pick one between them really. And then there's loads of cool, like, semi-background characters who had cool storylines, but they're not main characters. Like, you know, Colossus was cool and they turned him bad at one point, and that was interesting. Or Nightcrawler and how they ended his life and they killed that character off, and that was interesting. And you know, some obscure characters like Forge is a great character. You know, his power is technology, and he can make anything, and he ends up replacing a lot of his body parts and becoming a bit of a cyborg because he's so obsessed with technology, but his mutant power is just technology. That's cool. Forge is a really cool character in that, you know, how he makes those things. And another character, that time-travelling character, Bishop, you know, not only he's displaced and he's in the wrong time, but his superpower's cool. He can absorb energy. So if Cyclops shoots him with his blast, it doesn't hurt him, he absorbs it and he can shoot it right back out at you. Or Cable, and the X-Man is a very cool character because he's an alternate version of Cable and all this kind of stuff. I could go on forever. I could talk forever and ever talking about X-Men characters. So I better keep it brief and boring and say was Wolverine when I was a kid, and then as I got older and understood life a little bit more, it was Cyclops and Xavier really. And yeah, I think I've answered that about 4 times now. So I'll shut up and answer a different question. Okay. Darren Summers has asked me a cool question. So I'll get this one together now. This is kind of like the comic book and sci-fi episode, even though the last one was the wrestling episode. So we'll stick to this now, shall we? Stick to the sci-fi kind of questions. Darren Summers has asked me, let me find it, I've got to find it first. He's asked me what my best Star Trek TV episode is ever. And what he said of any era. But I'm going to expand that a little bit for 2 reasons. First of all, I can't really pick one. I can't. There's too much good television there. There's too many good hours of great storytelling and good stuff, you know. But because you've said what of each era, I've got to get out of jail free card. Really, I've got to get out of jail free card. Because what I will do, I'll answer you that from each era. So I'll ask you the TV episode from each era. I'm just going to get out to this lane and have a little drink, and I'll tell you. Got to pass this van, hang on. Because there's a lorry driving like an idiot in front of me, so I want to get around him. This is the problem with being on the road a lot. You just see so many buffoons. There's an 18-wheeler and it's doing that, and I just don't trust it. I don't want to be anywhere near it, so I'm going to speed for a little bit, just to get me about 1/4 of a mile away from the daft bastard. And then we'll settle down. There we go. Right, so favourite TV episode, Star Trek. Well, let's start with the proper era then. Let's start with the original era, as in William Shatner and Leonard Nimoy and DeForest Kelley and all those. That was that's my favourite era as it goes from acting. But I haven't got a favourite Star Trek because they're all amazing. But you know, they're the first, didn't they? So they etch into your mind, and more so for the movies that I go watching with my granddad. And that, you know, I love the original series. There's 2 episodes that stick out. Well, there's 3. There's 3 episodes that stick in my head. The first one I'll go over dead quick is the pilot. And the reason I'll go over that dead quick is some people might not know about it. Some people won't care about it. William Shatner's not in it. You've got a guy playing Captain Pike who's really cool. I forget his name now, Jeffrey something, I think. He went on to play Jesus Christ Superstar. That's why he turned down the series, actually. He got offered roles in films when the series was commissioned, and he went off to play Jesus Christ Superstar on the big screen in the cinema, and William Shatner played the captain. So there you go, that's an impressive bit of trivia. Spock's character's in it, but he's not very well refined. And you've got Majel Barrett in it playing number 1, which is cool because she's the first number 1, because obviously Will Riker plays number 1, you know, in The Next Generation. But the first ever number 1 was supposed to be Majel Barrett, who's an amazing actress in her own right. She went and played the Nurse Chapel in the original series, which is a bit of a naff character in my opinion. But then years later, you got to see her acting chops for real, because she played Ambassador Troy, Councillor Troy's mom, you know, a Beta Z character. And she was really funny in the comic relief in Next Generation. And she'd show Picard's character up a little bit and pretend he fancied her and embarrass him, and that was always funny. But then in The Next Generation, she got to play some really emotional parts, and she got to do some real honest-to-goodness acting opposite Odo's character. And oh god, there's an episode in the lift where she opens a dress and he almost dies and falls into a dress, and just phenomenal acting. But the reason I bring the cage up is she should have been number 1. She should have been second in command, and she would have showed us that amazing acting originally in the 60s. But the TV executives were still, you know, sexist and bigoted at the time, and they watched the pilot and they said to Gene Roddenberry, the creator and main writer of Star Trek, oh, we really like your idea, but you can't have a woman in charge. You know, a woman is so high up in the hierarchy. And he had to listen to him and take her off, and that's such a shame just because she was a woman. They were playing it in the future. Why wouldn't a woman be allowed to play that role? But I suppose you're dealing with sexist TV executives in the 60s, and they couldn't get their head around a woman being second in command of a starship, so they cancelled that character and moved on from it. And because of how good she acts in Deep Space Nine, I would have loved to have seen her act in those 3 seasons. So I've got to bring an honourable mention up for the cage, just because I really like Pike's character in it. But more so, Majel Barrett was in it, and because of how good she was in Deep Space Nine, how good she could have been in her youth as a commander of a Star Trek, of a starship. You know, it's a bit of a bill, like a bitter pill that they cancelled that really and had to change it round so much. But then again, we got some great characters in the original series, and Majel Barrett finally got her dues on Deep Space Nine. So it's all worked out in the end. But I wanted to mention the pilot, because that's one of my favourite episodes, because of what could have been, and because it was so different, and you had no Shatner but you had Pike and things like that, you know. That was cool. But 2 more then from the original series and I'll move on. I can't give you one, Darren, I'm sorry, I can't. I love Star Trek too much, and there's too much good television. There's too many good ones, and anybody who doesn't like Star Trek and doesn't like sci-fi would have turned off anyway. So it's probably just me talking to you and maybe Steve Butler, because I know he's like Star Trek as well. There's probably everyone else probably turned off, so I'm not boring them anymore. This is just for the Trekkies. Yeah, the pilot. Next one is an episode called The Devil in the Dark, and it's really, really cool because it's about a life form that's not humanoid in any way, shape or form. You know, it's like this grotesque lump on the floor that burrows through rock, and basically there's a mining colony burrowing into it, and as they're burrowing into the rock, they're coming across these like silicone circles, like these ball things, and they're just kicking them out the way and carrying on mining. But unbeknownst to them, it's this creature's eggs, and they're killing her eggs. And there's this amazing scene where Spock, Leonard Nimoy, mind melds with this, what they think is a monster. and he feels her emotion of them killing her babies, and he portrays that emotion, and he's going pain and upset, and he's evoking all this emotion of what this just assuming monster thinks on the floor. And you realise it's not a monster, it's a mother. You know, it's a mother whose babies are being killed. And I really like, a bit like how I spoke about the X-Men being like persecuted against, this is this thing that looks like an evil monster, that looks like it should be a monster, and in fact it's just a mother crying about her babies, and that's why she's killing these miners and this, that and the other. And they managed to sort it out, and I think it's just a very, very powerful episode if you watch it for what it is, if you watch it understanding what it's about. And I really, really like it. I like it a hell of a lot, and it means a lot to me, that episode, because it's about not judging a book by its cover, you know, and I really, really like that, Darren, that original episode, Devil in the Dark. Have a watch of it. Now I'll give you a bit of a backstory, watch it back, and you might get a bit more from it. There's more backstory from it as well, in that like William Shatner had lost his father during the filming of it, so he'd had to go off set to take care of family problems, and obviously he's grieving, he's really upset. And Spock's filmed, Leonard Nimoy's filmed a lot of his parts on those few days where William Shatner's not on set while he's dealing with family problems, and then William Shatner comes back on set and he has to film his parts, but Leonard Nimoy comes back and reads his parts off camera, really, really like with all the energy that he filmed it with the first time round, because he wants Shatner to understand what's going on and to act his best. And when you realise so much friendship between them was on set as well while that episode was going on, while that episode's about don't judge a book by its cover, and it's saying this monster's such, you know, just a mother grieving, and while William Shatner's actually grieving, there's a lot of background knowledge that you should watch knowing, and then watch that episode back and it's like, oh my god, it was an amazing episode, you know, it's just phenomenal. So that's brilliant, that's really, really cool. And there's one more episode, and ashamedly to me, while I've been just telling you all of that, I've been trying to remember the name of the episode and I can't remember it. But if I describe it to you and you're a Trekkie, you'll know. And if you don't know the name of the episode, it don't matter, because you'll think it's really, really cool. I think so anyway. Gene Roddenberry was a very, very clever man, and he was a very liberal man as well, and he wanted to use Star Trek to talk about inequality, you know, and injustice. For instance, in the 60s, like I just said, he cast Majel Barrett, a female actress, as his original commander for the Starship, the second in command. He was liberal, and he knew in the future that women would get equal rights, and he wanted to address those kind of things. Obviously the network cancelled that one. They were like, hey, you can't have a woman as a commander, get rid of her, you know, and he had to. But he would get other things in, and he was very, very clever. Like, I don't know whether you know, but Star Trek has the first ever interracial kiss. For instance, a black woman and a white man kiss for the first time on television ever, on Star Trek. You know, he made that happen. He did it to be the first, but he did it in a way that there was like aliens mind controlling him in a way, and he did it, and he got round the censors at the time, but he thought, sod you, I'm going to show it because I want to show it. And he addressed, back when segregation was still a thing in the bloody 60s in certain places in America, you know, like the Rat Pack would go on stage and perform, but one of their members happened to be a black man, so he could perform in that pub, but afterwards he couldn't necessarily have a drink in it after. I mean, you know, segregation was still a big thing, and he wanted to, Gene Roddenberry, the creator, he wanted to address racism. And I might even have spoke about this episode before online, but to be honest with you, it's such a powerful episode, and you've asked me about Star Trek episodes, I'm going to talk about it, it's phenomenal. Captain Kirk and Spock and you know, the Doctor Bones, and everyone's just doing what they do, and they encounter one ship, a small little ship that only carries one man, chasing another small little ship that only carries one man, and it's shooting it, and the engines are overloading and they're going to blow up. And Kirk, being, you know, just a Starfleet officer, kind of hails them, and he's like, slow your engines down, you're going to blow up, and this, that and the other. And the guy in the first ship seeks asylum on the Enterprise, or something along those lines. I'm paraphrasing the episode now, I'm just trying to explain the episode, but he ends up on board the ship, and he's like, help me, I plead asylum, help me, he's trying to kill me. And Shatner, obviously, Kirk's character, being a good man and being the star Fleet Star Trek message that Gene Roddenberry tried to put out there all the time. He was the good person and he gave him asylum. And I'll just describe this fugitive for you to give you an idea. He was painted black and white, but he was bald, I think, or he had hair. But imagine a line right down the middle of him, and one was painted white. And when I say white, I mean the colour white that's on my hat. I don't mean a white-skinned man, I mean the colour white. And the other half of him, exactly half of him, was black. And when I say black, again, I don't mean an African heritage man, I mean the colour black. So exactly half black and half white. So white here and black here, and a line down the middle, and that was supposedly his skin. That was his alien look or makeup, you know. And he's going, please give me asylum, please give me asylum. And Kirk's like, all right, no problem, get on board, blah, blah, blah. Hails the other ship. I've got to, please stop attacking him, X, Y, Z. And he comes on screen. And what's funny is he's half black and half white as well, exactly the same. But there's racial prejudice between the two. It's really funny. And he's like, he's a lower form of life to me, and he's a criminal, and I've got to track him down and take him back to my planet, and he'll be executed or put into slavery, whatever it is, you know. And he makes a racial slur about him because he's disgusting. Look, he's half white and he's half black. He's disgusting, and Kirk's reaction, he's like, what? How can you say you hate him because he's half white and half black? You're half white and half black. You're exactly the same as him. You're exactly the same as him. How can you say that racial slur against him? And the guy on the ship, the policeman who's chasing him, he's so insulted that he calls him half white and half black. He goes, how dare you? I'm not like him. Not at all. He's half white and half black. I'm half black and half white. And as the viewer at the time, as a kid, I was like, what? What are they going on about? And what I realised is, on this side, the fugitive's white and he's black on that side. But on this side, the copper, he's black on that side and white on that side, right down the middle. They're black in a different place. They're white in a different place. So that causes on their planet, obviously, racial tension and racial prejudice. And if you're half black on that side, you're on like the upper side. And if you're half white on that side, you're persecuted. And it's insane. But what it really does, it highlights how stupid racism is. We're all the same, and this, that and the other. And Kirk's shocked at, like, no, you're just the same as him. But then the police officer saying, no, I'm white on this side and black on this side, whereas he's black on this side and white on that side, so he's scum. How dare you say I'm the same as him? But to look at them, they look the same, it's just they're flipped colours, they're like a mirror to each other. And I just love, and I will find the name of this episode out and I'll put it online, but basically it was Gene Roddenberry's way of dealing with racism in the 60s, in that it got around all the censors and the big chief executives because they didn't see the message he was trying to get across. But me as a 12-year-old, I got the message and I'm like, oh my god, it's dealing with racism, how cool's that? And that's everything that I love about Star Trek, you know. It promotes just being a better person, and it highlights issues that you shouldn't highlight or the people don't want to highlight and things like that. They were woke before woke was cool, you know, before woke got too much and rammed it down your throat. They just gave you little subtle messages that just questioned morality and just pushed you in the right direction instead of lecturing you in the right direction. Because I think good people always end up in the right place anyway, don't they? And it's much better if you gently push there rather than hammered over the head, told you're a bad person and you're going to hell because, you know, you might have a certain view or something. How about just a bit of education instead? And that's what Star Trek used to be and still is in many ways. But yeah, they're my favourite original series episodes. I'm going on so much about Star Trek, ain't I, Daz? I bet you wish you never asked this question now. Next Generation. There's so many good episodes to pick from that I'm just going to pluck a few out the air. Captain Picard, Patrick Stewart's acting throughout those are amazing, but the big one that I do love is where he's captured by the Cardassians and he's sat down in front of the table, and I can't remember the name of these episodes, Daz, but I'm just calling you Daz presumptively. I don't know whether you might call you that because you're Darren on Facebook, so apologise if you hate that. But yeah, he's the one where he's captured by the Cardassians and he's sat down and he's interrogated, and at first he's tortured, he's hung up naked and they're electrocuting him, and in the end this big chief, he cuts him down, puts him in a chair, puts a rag on him, and he gives him some disgusting like maggot fucking egg to eat or something. It's an episode about torture and about free will and about standing up for yourself, but it's amazing because now I might be getting the numbers wrong here, but there's 4 lights behind the Kardashian, and the Kardashians, don't forget, represent Nazis. That's what they represent. They represent torture and persecution and nastiness and evilness. You know, their characters are directly represent the Nazis. And he says, there's 5 lights behind me. Just say there's 5 lights and you can go home. And he knows he's not going to let him home, but there's 4 lights, and he goes, there's 4 lights. And he tortures him. And the acting in it, I'm not going to try and replicate it, but there's this one bit where, you know, he's got to release this prisoner, and just before it, Picard's almost about to give in, and as he's allowed to go home, he just screams so emotionally, with like cuts on his lips because he's so dehydrated and bruises all over him. There are 4 lights, and I can't do it justice. It probably sounds pathetic me trying to do it, but the acting in it of this tortured, downtrodden captain is just phenomenal, and I like that episode even though it's a little bit uncomfortable. A very, very well acted episode. The flute, that episode where he has a whole family in a lifetime and can play the flute at the end, that's very, very emotional. I like that one. There's a very, very good 2-part episode where Worf kind of resigns his Starfleet commission and sods off back to the Klingons to kind of get honor back to his family, and that's a very, very powerful episode. I couldn't nail it down to one episode, if I'm honest. Unification, part 1 and part 2, where Leonard Nimoy's in it playing a much older Spock, reunifying Romulus and Vulcan. That's it all trying to. That's an amazing episode with a lovely bit of nostalgia, because I often think that Data's character was meant to mirror Spock's character and Spock's growth to more humanity later on, and I think that was supposed to mirror it. So the fact that they shoehorned Data into that episode, I always thought was a nice nod, and this, that and the other. But I'm probably not remembering some really good Star Trek Next Generation episodes. So I'm going to go with the flute episode and the 4 Lights Kardashian torture episode, if just off the top of my head, because I think they're phenomenal. For Deep Space Nine, I'm going to have to go back to that episode that I spoke about earlier because of how powerful Majel Barrett's acting is, where she has she gets stuck in a lift with Odo, and Odo's very, very poorly and very sickly, and she takes a wig off, but obviously vanity to her character is everything, and she exposes herself in a way to him to say, look, it doesn't matter that you're poorly, I'm not judging you. Very, very powerful acting, very, very powerfully written episode. I like that episode a lot. And I also like the throwback episode where Cisco and a few of the other characters end up on the original ship with Kirk, and there's a lot of good. It's like a Tribbles episode. It was like a 25th or 35th year episode celebration or something, and the Deep Space Nine cast end up on the original series cast, and it's got a lot of splice scenes and a lot of the old footage included. There's a great bit where Shatner's Kirk tells off O'Brien and he's in the lineup for the argument, and that's just a great episode. I will go as far as to say I think Deep Space Nine has got the deepest cast. You know, you've got guest actors in it like Garak and people like that are only supposed to be in 2 or 3 episodes, but they're that good. They're reoccurring characters, and then you've got Odo, and you've got Nog and Quark and Rom and the Ferengi contingent. You've got, you know, I mean, how good is the Magnificent Seven episode with the 7 Ferengi? That's just what an episode, you know. And then you've got the Starfleet characters in it, like Miles O'Brien, that they expand on, the Doctor, Julian Bashir. I think they've got the most diverse cast, they've got the biggest cast, but they all still get they get their stories flashed out. So I love Deep Space Nine. Voyager, there's some great episodes, some good episodes, you know, where they can break the Prime Directive, but they choose not to be. Or episodes where they do break the Prime Directive and they kind of like dial it back, and oh man, I like all of them. I'll put a joke in there for you, Darren. My favourite Star Trek Discovery episode is the episode where Michael Burnham doesn't cry. and you're going to have to find that episode, and then you tell me which it is, and I'll tell you that's my favourite Discovery episode. Because I've stopped watching that. I'm just fed up of watching her cry. It's just there's a lot of other plot holes in that series that I'm bored of, but I'll be honest, I don't think I'm going to watch the new series, because it'll just be Michael Burnham going on great lengths to show that she's part of, you know, her character's developing, and she regrets the past, and she'll cry every episode, and she'll win all the time. And yeah, I'm not a big fan of Discovery. There's certain parts of Discovery I like. Captain Pike's bits on that are amazing. Certain elements of early Burnham before they made her cry every single week were really cool. Emperor Giorgio were cool, but they dropped the ball big time, I think, on that. So although I could probably highlight some good episodes, I'm going to jokingly, tongue-in-cheek say it's the episode where Michael Burnham doesn't cry in the last season. Find me that one, whatever that one is, it's that. I don't think you'll find it, is my joke. Yeah, I don't know, I've spoke about a few of my favourite episodes there, but my answer is really, Darren, I can't answer you. Even though I've just spoke about maybe 10 episodes, there's another 50 that are my favourite. I love Star Trek, mate, and it's just amazing. So yeah, there you go. Probably the boringest answer ever for you guys that don't like Star Trek, but you've already turned off anyway. I'll end this sci-fi comic book episode on one question from O'Shea. He's asked me, and this is a setup for an ending really, so I can say goodbye to you. He's asked me what my favourite era of horror films are. He says 60s, 70s, 80s, 90s or now. What are my favourite horror film era? And I'm going to disappoint you now, O'Shea, and all you horror fans out there. I don't watch horror movies, so I can't answer your question. That's my answer, none. I'll quickly explain why I can't. I've got a very, very overactive imagination. I always have had since I was a child. My mind will run. You know, I'll see a strange man walking down the street, and maybe he'll look over his shoulder, and I'll think he's a spy. He is, and if I'm with somebody I know, or if I'm on my own, I'll say it in my head. I'll invent his whole backstory, and he's got a wife called Kathy, and he's a really good spy, and he hates his wife, and he shot his dog, and I'll come up with all these mad scenarios. I've seen a man 5 seconds look over his shoulder. My imagination just goes into overdrive. And my problem with horror films is, if I watch a horror film, I have huge nightmares about it. Even still now in my 30s, I have mad nightmares. Well, to give you an idea, if I watch a slightly scary Star Trek that's a bit of a thriller episode, if I watch a slightly scary Star Trek, I end up having nightmares about it. Or if I just have a scary thought, I'll have 3 weeks worth of nightmares about it. So it's not a nice thing. So if I ever watch a horror, I have 3 months worth of nightmares about it. It's just not worth my hassle. I enjoy the horror for what it is, but then I wake up on a Wednesday night at 3 a.m. and because of my weird imagination, it's grown around, and Freddy Krueger's 50 feet tall and he's trying to kill me nan or whatever, you know. It's not worth the hassle for me, mate. So I don't know is my answer. I've only ever probably watched 2 or 3 horrors in my whole life, and I still have nightmares about them now, and there's no point me watching anymore because they just terrorise me. I have night terrors and nightmares and sleepwalking off reading a book. So there's no need for me to watch horrors because they're not good for me. So that's my answer, mate. None. I'm sorry, I can't answer your question. But this episode 6, we've talked about X-Men, we've talked about Star Trek, we've talked about horror movies, or we haven't. However you want to interpret my question. But yeah, that's it really. That's the end of episode 6, and I hope that was okay for you folks. I've waffled on. That was my sci-fi and fiction episode. So for those of you that just tune in for wrestling, I apologise. Hopefully I will carry on doing this, and there will be an episode 7 or a series 2 or however we decide to do it. But thank you so much for watching episode 1 to 6, and I really appreciate you supporting me and telling me you've enjoyed them. Even if you haven't, you're selling some porky pies to make this whole wrestler feel happy. I love you all so much. Take care, guys. I'll speak to you soon. Mwah. See you later.